Okay, we're getting ready to rock and roll here. Seems like it's all working well. If you're tuning in, leave a comment. I can pull it up on screen. Just enjoying a Wednesday. It's noon, 12 p.m. We got some stuff going on. We're going to play it a little bit loose for these next couple episodes. Feeling it out. Feeling it out. Hope everyone's doing well. Let me see what's going on here. It's working pretty well. I did a test. I was like watching on a few other kind of like devices that I have, just making sure everything's working. So it seems it's working. We got a lot to talk about today too. We're going to be talking about, let me see here. And if you're watching too, leave a comment. Let me know if the audio is working okay and everything. We're doing this on the fly. We're doing it live. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff happening in the news. We've got, what I'll do is I'll start recording there too. Always good to have backup recordings. Actually, what I'll do real quick, let me try something just before we get started here. Let me see here. I've got a link that I'm going to share with everybody shortly to actually join the show and actually come up on screen here. But I'm just going to see if it works. Probably should have done that before the show, but what are you going to do? Let's test it. I think a good first person to join the show would be my dog, maybe. Let's check it out. Let's see what's going on. Yeah, so we can get other people in the show too, which is great. I'll head out of here though. So that's working. Everything's working. I'm kind of surprised. I was expecting it to not be working super well. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about. I want to like quickly touch on the GME stuff, but some cool updates from Genfinity. Might have King Solomon stop by, which would be great. I see him actually here, so he'll hop up in a minute. We're going to be talking about a bunch of different updates too. We got the Hashpack pack token launch, the Hashpack backpack knapsack pack token launch, karate combat stuff, SaucerSwap stuff, everything like that. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. But anyways, like I said, the show for the next couple weeks is going to be a little weird. The format's going to be a little strange. We're feeling it out. We're seeing what's going on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up King Solomon here in a minute, and we're going to see how this thing's working. So King Solomon, let me quickly flip this off here. Perfect. How you doing, man?
This is a new experience for me. I do not feel. Where am I? Here I am. Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, you don't hear echo on my end. Do you?
No. Do you hear? Is there echo on your end?
I hear myself. Echoing.
Okay. Well, as long as nobody else does, I'll make a quick note, something to fix. But yeah, dude,
how's it going? This is interesting. This is a new experience for me, and congratulations on shifting to video here.
Thanks, man. I'm working on it. I'm currently doing the shift. And I'm already noticing, it was funny. I did a couple tests yesterday, and there was a bunch of stuff that wasn't working. I got it sorted out because it was nice, because a bunch of people kind of like tuned in and were trying some stuff out, letting me know if audio was working and everything, and got the bugs worked out. So it's awesome to have you here to kind of see how the experience is on your end from the other side. And I know that you guys are looking to do the same thing, so it's kind of cool to see if I can actually get this working.
Yeah, I mean, always in this constant position of trying to figure out ways to do better content. You know what I mean? And like, is the audio the only way? What's kind of going to be the process moving forward? And I'm happy to be the guinea pig. And I think it kind of, I just interviewed Growth last Friday, and he was mentioning hamsters and guinea pigs. So I think it fits in perfectly here. So.
Right on. Okay. So I'm getting a note here that everybody's hears the echo. So we'll keep a note on that. We'll keep a note on that.
Let me try to switch my mic.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It might not just be you though, because apparently everybody's getting the echo. But what I've tried doing is muting my mic, because I've got a bunch of devices that I'm using to get this stuff rocking. Okay, it's working now. What I did was I just muted my mic when you were talking.
Okay. Okay.
Right on.
I'm still
This
hearing
is
it. I'm still hearing it.
oh, okay. Here. How about now? Do you hear it now?
Test. No.
Right. Okay. That's what I got to do for this episode is I got to mute my mic when the others are talking. That's what I got to do. And then I got to buy some more wires and connect some more things differently. But I wanted to get, so just while I've got you here, like on the topic of Hedera, what the show is about, you've been publishing some really awesome stuff recently. I know you did the Grelf interview. Is there still echo just from me or from everybody? Oh no. We might have to try the guest stuff a little later. Is there still echo now, people listening? If not,
let me change my audio.
Maybe I'll turn you down just for a second. But basically, I wanted to ask you. So you've been doing some awesome content recently. You did the interview with Grelf. You broke down the semantics of rodent-like versus rodents. I felt like you did such a great job playing the straight man on that. But maybe just a quick takeaway. Like I wanted to ask you. I know that Grelf is fun. Grelf is a wacky project. But when we take a bit more of a serious spin on it, we look at what like meme coins and what Grelf specifically is doing in the Hedera space, like. Stacked up against all. Oh, good. Oh, so it's only echo from your end. Okay, great. So when we look at meme coins, all these different things, and then we stack it up to like enterprise, all these different types of things. There's this tug of war between those two things, and we're seeing the impact of retail. But when you put your serious hat on with Grelf, and maybe like the kind of like objective looking at what's happening, like. And your knowledge and experience in other ecosystems, how important is what Grelf is doing? Like, I know it's dumb, like getting the giraffe with the HBAR Foundation, but like those types of things, it's clear what Grelf is trying to do with his project. And I kind of, after doing that interview, I kind of want to get your take on like what you're seeing play out in the Hedera ecosystem with this retail narrative.
Yeah. Does my mic? Can you still hear me? Okay, cool. I switched to my laptop mic. No, I mean, I think it's a constant shift. I mean, I think, look, if you look at the meme coin stuff, it's very easy with like kind of a utility mindset to get angry at what meme coins do in this space or what meme coins represent in this space. But I think if you step back further, I think in representing kind of like really kind of like the cypherpunk type movement, like the ethos of like, it almost is like a play on like how ridiculous traditional finance and the way that our assets are normally managed right now is kind of what, at least in my opinion, like what kind of spurred the meme coin stuff. I think there's a ton of risk, obviously, with everything in this space, not just meme coins, but every asset, everything in this entire space is risky because of the lack of clarity. What I think is a mistake that a lot of people make is they underestimate the power of not meme coins per se, but what meme coins can represent. And that's people coming together and community ethos. Otherwise, you look at ecosystems like Solana and it's like, you see how many complaints do you see where it's like, well, there's all this real world adoption over here and everything else, but Solana goes to a $70 billion market cap based on meme coins and PFPs and all the other stuff that comes along with it. And at the end of the day, what does that represent? It represents that people will use technology, number one, if they think they can make money from it. And number two, if they feel like they're having fun with it. So I think when you look at the enterprise stuff and what's actually being built, that's certainly the runway that we're leading towards here. But in the interim, how many real world businesses and enterprises have digitized their entire, I just put that post out today, their entire business models on chain, and it's like probably none. So we're at this intersection still where I feel like the meme coin stuff, the community stuff will never go away, obviously. And I think in one sense, it showcases kind of the empowerment of like community coming together under whatever the narrative may be. On the other hand, it's obviously, there's a lot of inherent risk that comes into all this stuff too. So, yeah.
And I think that's a great point because this kind of brings up something that was not brought to my attention, but that I realized today is just kind of the environment that we're in. Like Hedera is very much like the enterprise network, and we got meme coins, we got DeFi, but I think that the Hedera crowd, it's still kind of, as you said, like very new to a lot of those folks. It goes against kind of their initial thesis of investing. Like I remember people investing in HBAR because the algorithm was patented, you know what I mean? And now we've gone so far from that in so many great ways. But when we look at the meme coin stuff, and then we pull back on what's actually happening more broadly, like with the real world asset narratives and all the different types of things happening that you're speaking about. One thing that was interesting is Hedera has been posting like these awesome tweets, and I'll just see if I can bring this up. But basically, I posted this recently, if I can get to my profile. So Hedera there's us right there. Hedera. So this was one thing that I noticed was like Hedera posted a bunch of these awesome tweets, and this has been a big kind of point of contention for the community, where it's like, is Hedera retail focused? Are they more enterprise focused? And they've been posting these awesome tweets, but then they've been like deleting them. And the tweet that they deleted was actually like pretty innocuous. It was just like, transactions should not be manipulated, all those kinds of things. They had a great kind of exchange, but then they had it deleted. And someone from Hedera reached out to me today because of my tweet, and they were like, this environment that we're in right now is just so difficult. There's so much pressure. There's so much scrutiny from all different people, not just various industries and players, but like internally in the companies and stuff. And then you bring in meme coins into the phase, and it's like when we look at meme coins on other networks versus Hedera, do you see kind of the meme coin culture rolling it on Hedera like a lot different than other networks because of the nature of Hedera, or is it kind of like same, or is it very, very much different?
I don't honestly. My interview with Grelf was because I've known the guy for years, so I don't. I try to, in broad strokes, pay attention to what's going on across these networks, but as far as like deep meme coin culture, I don't know. I just feel like what I've seen, like, if you look at, again, like a network like Solana and things like that, I haven't seen a lot of real world stuff going live, but I know where the market cap went to, and I know what people were doing on that chain. So, I think that obviously anything in the space, like, especially when you get into like, well, and luckily, for Growth, he's doxed and everything else. So you've got somebody kind of sitting behind there, but, I don't know, man. I mean, I feel like it's not just like the meme coin cultural stuff. It's just like community cultural stuff. As a whole, you look at communities, and whenever you're getting, the type of stuff where it's, or reach out where it's like, man, it's so stressful and there's just so much going on right now and there's a lot of pressure. Like, that's not a Hedera unique situation. That is an industry-wide situation where all of these ecosystems are wondering how to navigate, maybe it's frustration, or maybe it's community expectations, or maybe it's, you can probably come up with 100 different things. And I think that's across the board with all these different, all these different ecosystems. It gets into the narrative, and without getting too much into price speculation, but we see this all the time in this space where price is up, so the technology must be good. Price is down, so the technology must be bad. And it's totally, I think that's a ridiculous argument in the medium to long term. But you do see frustration. The "what have you done for me lately?" The immediate gratification kind of culture that society kind of brings with it at this point in time. So, yeah.
Everybody's just trying to get a giraffe. And I was going to say too, one thing that just on that, I think you hit on something important, which is like narrative is key. Like, you can be the best network, you can have the best tech, you can have the best community, all that kind of stuff. But if you hit a wave of a powerful narrative, that can change everything for a network. And so we're seeing Hedera, try. They're very well positioned in so many different verticals with great narratives, like, again, real world assets, carbon offset, all that kind of stuff. But one kind of unique aspect of this ecosystem is what Swirls Labs is doing with DeRec. And that's almost kind of another type of narrative, but in a weird way. Like, it really kind of has nothing to do with Hedera. It doesn't really involve the network at all, but through embracing so many other ecosystems and delivering like a really powerful piece of infrastructure and technology through it, like the new protocol, we're seeing like, Algorand, and a bunch of others hop on board. And I know you published a piece recently. We're going to talk later in the show about a story about some new people joining the DeRec Alliance, but I wanted to touch on this piece because you sent it to me and you had been working on this piece for a while. And you kind of were breaking down the DeRec Alliance and Constellation kind of being a part of that and your thoughts on that. And I was, interested to kind of see if we could take a closer look at kind of what you broke down here in this piece, because I found this really, really interesting. And I'm hoping to see more of these as the DeRec Alliance kind of unfolds.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting if you look into obviously Lehman's work. He's been talking about, I remember you and I interviewed Lehman maybe like a year and a half ago about DeRec and decentralized recovery. And then you kind of saw the Algorand being kind of one of the, Hedera ecosystem. So Swirls Labs, Hedera, HBAR Foundation, Algorand kind of being the founding member aspects. I'm interested in what decentralized recovery looks like across tokenization of a lot of different assets. And I think each network is doing different things. I mean, if you look at, knowing, because we obviously Genfinity works with Constellation, looking at what they're trying to do around data provenance, and not even just data, but like compute, the way that data is organized, managed, stored, separated, utilized, things like that. And the work that they kind of have ongoing with the government, I find it interesting when you start thinking about when all this stuff actually comes on chain and you need recovery mechanisms, not only for crypto, which is just, a digital asset, but for identity or for data or for whatever it may be. That's where I really start thinking it becomes interesting to kind of just speculate on where an initiative like DeRec goes. Because if it's industry wide, if it's industry wide, then it's technology wide. And as these different portions of technology start converging with blockchain and DLT, you would imagine that you would want recovery aspects for all the stuff that ties into it. So I find that pretty fascinating to kind of dig into. And you can think about what Hedera is really good at right now. You can think about some of the things that Hedera is probably going to be really good at in the future. Same thing with all these other networks. And think about like Ethereum, right? And you look at what was the killer. I mean, there's probably a couple of different things, but what was like the killer app to drive EVM everywhere? And I would argue it's probably like ERC20 and smart contracts. So like, once that stuff came about, it's like now everybody's using EVM and there's kind of a model for all this stuff. So what happens if DeRec or something like DeRec becomes the killer app for recovery? Because one point I mentioned in there is if you look back to 2009 and all the innovation in this space, DeFi, NFTs, all the, tokenization, all this stuff that we consistently see every cycle, how much innovation has there really been for decentralized recovery and making like the recovery aspects for your digital assets simpler? The single password, single user thing is great, but how much red tape is there to really onboard the masses without having something that just works in the background? So, and that's for retail.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the huge thing, is that's, again, like to reference Lehman, is like, that's what, mass adoption will happen when people are using it. They don't even realize they're using it. And we actually got, just on the narrative topic, we got a viewer question. Zachary says, do narrative, this is like interesting. Do narratives make the number go up, or does the number create the narratives? That's actually, it's a dumb question, but it gets my brain going, because it's like, yeah, you think about that. Like, what actually happens? Like, do people see a big green candle and a narrative forms, or is there some kind of narrative that causes that? Like, that's a very actually interesting thing to think about now. I'm curious to kind of get your thoughts on that, like chicken and egg, like what's first, the pump or the narrative,
I think the majority of price action drives narratives. I think 95% of the time. But there are situations that we've seen where narratives drive price action. I can think of, Ripple being sued by the SEC 2 weeks before Jay Clayton left office a couple of years back, and price action dumped, and it was directly on the back end of that. You can think about speculation around tokenized, BlackRock money market fund and what that did with the HBAR price. I mean, that 100% is something that drove price action. That announcement, right? But it's interesting. I mean, it's certainly both. But I would argue that price action probably normally drives narratives. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I mean, we've been here for a handful of years. Sometimes it's interesting because I feel like there's really no correct answer in some regards to some of this stuff. I'm always shocked in this space and always learning different stuff. But yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I think that price action drives narratives most of the time, but I do know that narratives drive price action some of the time.
Yeah, it definitely kind of like gets me thinking. And then so before I move on with the rest of the show, it's been so awesome to have you here, man. But I wanted to ask you an important question. I know this is like Hashgraph enthusiast, Hedera stuff, HBAR news or whatever, but I always love having you on because I can kind of pick your brain a little bit, and maybe for folks in the Hedera community that are maybe not super exposed to what's happening in some of these other ecosystems. Cause I'm following Genfinity on X and I'm seeing some of those headlines, and it's just like equally crazy cool stuff happening in so many other ecosystems. And I was going to say, if you could pick one thing from one ecosystem, some initiative or project or narrative or whatever it might be that you really feel that folks in Hedera just really have no idea. And it's time that Hedera people start to get more interested in these other networks. Like if you're excited about DeRec, you should also be excited about Algorand and everybody else involved in the DeRec Alliance and what's happening on those other networks. So like if you were to pick one thing from another ecosystem that H Barbarian should like check out right now that you're certain they have no idea about, what kind of would that be?
Honestly, I think, Darren, who helps us co-host a lot of this stuff all the time, him and I have talked about this where a handful of years ago, any one of these announcements that we've seen come out this year, these bigger announcements, would have driven the entire narrative of the space for like half of a year. So for me, I think it's like almost impossible to pick one thing because you can look at we're like working in the XDC ecosystem now, and you look at what they're doing with tokenization, and then you can look at even like Luxo, which we just recently started working with, and like Fabian Vogelsteller, who literally invented ERC20 and smart contracts. And you can look at the infrastructure where it might not be a huge announcement for a real world type thing happening on chain, but you can look at the infrastructure being built for user experience. Like I can't think of like one direct thing because I think if you're in any community, you're going to learn so much by getting outside of the box and figuring out what's going on in these other ecosystems to bolster up your own community or your own network or all these other things, because there's like so much innovation happening across the entire space in tandem, where it's number one, it's impossible to keep up with because there's so much going on at once. But number two, like to be able to learn as much as you possibly can from other networks to try to bolster out or bring ideas to the network that you're native to, I mean, I think is massively valuable. So yeah, I can't think of one thing because there's just way too much, dude. If you would have asked me this question 3 or 4 years ago, 100%, I could have probably shot off 1 or 2 things. But now it's like almost every day we see something major in the industry.
Yeah, you know what? I agree. And even to that point too, you make a really good point. And it kind of like, even just within an ecosystem, like I've noticed there's kind of this trend in the Hedera ecosystem of like, oh, we can't have multiple spaces happening at once, or we can't have multiple shows happening at once or whatever. But it's like, that's growth. Like that's adoption. Like that's kind of what happens is the supply demand. It's like, it turns out there might be enough demand in this little Hedera ecosystem for, 2 Twitter spaces to be happening at once. That's a good thing. I mean, I just looked at the numbers. There's about 212 people watching this stream right now. I have no idea. I have no idea who they are, but, and funny too, like I noticed some people that used to listen on X are tuning in from YouTube now. So, that's really interesting to see, but, yeah, no, those are good. So those are some great points. I think that we just kind of have to get used to the new pace of things. I think the pace has just picked up. The volume's picked up. It's a little overwhelming, but I think it kind of just takes more of us.
Yeah, you
that's
can't.
A good thing.
You can't want the. I mean, I guess you can. You can do whatever you want to do. But I'm always interested in narratives where people are like, I want the network to grow. The network should be X, Y, and Z. The network should be huge, but it needs to be huge in just the way that I want. And it's like, that's not going to happen. It never happens that way. And I would argue that, like, if you're not seeing multiple spaces about Hedera in the future at one point in time, there's probably something going on that isn't positive. Like, the whole goal here is multiple different viewpoints, multiple different people converging with different ideas, talking about different projects all at once. You know, that's what I would hope to see over time, is just many more spaces, many more content creators, many more projects and builders, all with different viewpoints, all talking. Hopefully there's 5,000 different X spaces going on at one time about Hedera, right? I mean, that should be the goal here.
Oh, dude, 100%. And I know in the past, I know, like, we've messaged each other in the past, like, oh no, I'm doing a spaces at that time. Oh no. And my attitude has just always been like, this is a great sign. Like, this is literally just the dream. Is like, I remember, doing this show like way back October 2021, like on Clubhouse for like 10 people. It's like, it would have been great to have like another person doing shows like that. But now we've got like, we've probably in the Hedera ecosystem, we've probably got close to 4 or 5 people doing like daily Twitter spaces, just for like, it's pretty insane. And they have consistent viewership. I'm pretty sure you're seeing that in other ecosystems too. Like, we have to get, I think that's really the takeaway here from this conversation, is the amount of information, the amount of good news, the amount of bad news, the amount of everything. It's just more. It's just, this is what the ramp up to mass adoption feels like. It just feels like more. And it's kind of strange because it's not what we're used to, but we kind of got to get used to it in a way,
Yeah, it's been really cool. I mean, I remember probably a couple of years ago, it was your spaces, our spaces, Brandon spaces, obviously Hello Future spaces, Fat Boy, who I haven't seen do spaces for a long time, but he was doing great spaces, and Hot Dog, or Captain Hot Dog, and those guys. But now, you see like, what is it? IPEX does a bunch of spaces. I see Maui and that crew doing spaces all the time. I mean, I love seeing tons of spaces across these communities, because at the end of the day, like, that's kind of what we want, so I don't have really with that. So
1000%. Well, man, I so much appreciate you stopping by. I can't believe that this broadcast is actually working somehow. This is pretty crazy. So it's awesome to have you as kind of like the first guest of the new, it feels like the new Hashgraph Enthusiast show. And it's just been so meaningful to have your support. Like, you've been a guest on the show for so long, and contributed greatly to the growth. Like, a lot of people don't know this, but King Solomon will literally just go and hop into people's spaces, because your followers do see you tune into spaces. And when you hop into someone's spaces, your listeners jump up and they come in from other ecosystems, and you can hop around to different spaces and kind of make that happen. So myself, a bunch of other people, like, really appreciate what you do in the community. So it's just awesome to have you by. And yeah, it's good. It's good to see this working. It's good to see your face.
Yeah, dude. Thank you. Yeah, dude. And I arguably the most consistent guy in the Hedera community, in the Hedera space, man. It's been awesome to watch. How many shows is this for you now? What is this number?
125.
125 spaces. And just to watch, like, because even at episode 1, like, going all the way back in the day when you were first doing these, I mean, the valuable content was great. But I mean, I've noticed, like, kind of this evolution of it takes a while to get the personality to come through in a very natural way, and to feel comfortable with what you're doing, and to kind of have a routine that's kind of there, but be flexible enough to kind of just give real viewpoints and stuff like that in this space. And it's not, I mean, I always find like some of our stuff has to come across as kind of almost like a PR, like positive spin on stuff, but that's kind of just the person that I am anyways. I like just the no bullshit take that you give on this whole space, and like the real valuable viewpoints, and you're on top of it, dude. And it's something to be admired. So yeah, kudos, man. And Looking forward to doubling up for show 250 here. So I'll be here in a year when you do 250 or whatever that is, like 3 months based on how many shows you do. So I appreciate it, man.
Really appreciate you, man. It was funny, just real quick before you go, Tata commented that we should do episode 250 in like VR, beam directly to the brain or something.
100%. I'll see you, man.
Wow. Okay. So, this is going really well. I can't believe this is working. I'm very much interested to see how the rest of the show goes, because we're going to take a look at all these different amazing stories. Awesome to have King Solomon on the show. It's great to have viewer comments, and keep the comments coming. If there's any news that you think I should check out, leave a comment. I'll bring it up on screen. We'll talk about it. But one note today, we figured out we have, a couple audio issues. So what I'm going to do is next week, I think the theme is going to be having people call in. I actually put out a tweet where I was like, hey, everybody, call into the show. I don't think I can do the show call-ins today, unfortunately, because for some reason I've put the input and output as the same on my streaming software or whatever it might be. I'm just going to reply and be like, never mind. But yeah, so we'll get that sorted. But next episode, I want to do some stuff where we can have more people calling in, more people, checking out everything. So it's rocking and rolling. Yeah, Patches, she's in the background. She's doing good. She's chilling. And we're vibing. So keep it real. And Patches too, just a note, would love to have you come by, but the problem is that I had some audio issues with King Solomon. So, I mean, we'll get something rocking. We'll get something rocking next week after I get some audio issues worked out here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to dive into some stories here. And the first one I wanted to mention was something really exciting, something I'm really, really proud of, and something that I think a lot of folks will get excited about. And what I'm going to do real quick here is, why isn't that? Oh, there we go. I'm troubleshooting in real time. This is real. This is real stuff happening. There we go. There we go. There we go. Let's open it up in this one. Okay. So this is kind of like some kind of breaking news here that I was really, really excited about and proud about. But HIP 920 is going to final call. And I want to talk a little bit about kind of what does this mean, what's going on. So HIP 920 is we've talked about it extensively on the show. I'd encourage everyone to go back and listen to previous episodes. I did a big breakdown of it. There's actually some great clips, and Vasizi published some great clips from an episode of the HBAR Foundry podcast that we did, breaking it all down. But basically what this means is the HIP 920 music metadata standards for Hedera that the Hashgraph NFT working group was working on. The update is it's in final review now, which is really exciting. Shout out to Michael Garber over at Swirlds, always working on the HIP stuff. True community member, treating everything with great importance, even just some music metadata standards. So really appreciate Michael, and very, very excited to get HIP 920 off the ground here. Something else here that was interesting is Charles from Hedera, aka the president, put out an interesting tweet, and this was one I think that really got me thinking. So, as most know, or hopefully most know, last week on Friday was the Hedera Governing Council meeting, and this was an interesting one because it was in New York, and it was in person, and it was following like a community meetup, right? At NFT DeFi community meetup, which was very interesting. And I think that Charles' tweet here, when he says, my first in-person council meeting was impactful and a good reset to talk about the vision for the future. So I think that this kind of feeds into a bit of a narrative of like a little bit of a refresh at Hedera in a really good way. And I think that what it also kind of alludes to is the kind of like, yeah, the freshness, the reset, and some of the things that we've been seeing, right? Like we've been seeing a bunch of new kind of tonality from Swirlds, Hedera, the HBAR, especially the HBAR Foundation. A lot of people have been very excited about. A lot of people have been very excited about, the change of tone in the HBAR Foundation. I've been really excited about that. There's been a greater sense of transparency, a greater sense of community involvement, which has been awesome. And, we talk about Hedera. I was just talking about, Hedera deleting tweets and stuff. So we're still getting there. But this post from Charles really gets me thinking in that regard, and kind of confirms those suspicions that I have. And I think that a lot of people have about a change of pace, a change of direction, all healthy, from the top to the bottom at Hedera. And so it was good to read that tweet. And it was kind of cool that, it was first in-person governing council meeting as the president of the, of Hedera LLC. So I think that was pretty cool to see, in my opinion. I was really good to see that. We got some comments from Paul. Paul says, patches, GOAT. I had 2 Era caps made with my brother. What is HBAR embroidery? Yo, Paul, that's awesome. Making hats that say my brother, what is HBAR? That's amazing. Okay. So what I want to do now is I want to dive into, I think, a really important story that a lot of folks are excited about. This is the PAC token, and we've got some news in regards to the release of the PAC token, and what we should be expecting. So right now, obviously, we've got PAC token launch. It's set for May 22nd at 8 a.m. PST. The thing is that people got to remember, and I went in deep. If you go back, I can't remember what it's episode 121 or 122, but I went in deep on the Hashpack white paper, or the PAC token white paper. There's a clip of it on YouTube. You can just search up, Hashgraph Enthusiast, PAC white paper, whatever. I do a big breakdown of it. But basically, if you remember one thing, please remember to associate the token ID for PAC token, or you're not going to get your PAC token. It's as simple as that. So please, if you take away one thing from this, remember to associate your PAC token. Make sure to do it. You can probably go into Hashpack and just search PAC and associate. But there's one really key thing that hopped out at me at this announcement. Number 2 here, multiple centralized exchange listings, details coming soon. And I don't know if folks remember this, but a while back, and when I say a while, I think it was a couple weeks ago, maybe it was in April, SaucerSwap did a kind of community AMA that they do in Discord. And they shared that they're working with, I think they said 2 top tier centralized exchanges to help those exchanges integrate HTS tokens, right? Hedera tokens. And that was really exciting because first you think what are the exchanges? They could be very big exchanges. And when you think about that, those exchanges potentially listing Sauce token, that's great. But in their conversation, mentioning potentially other HTS tokens, implying that, these leading tokens getting listed will open the doors for other tokens to get listed. It really gets me excited. And seeing this post from Hashpack, outlining the, release of the token, and seeing this, to be honest, I really feel that there is a wave coming for HTS tokens on Hedera because of increased accessibility. I'm just seeing so many leading projects talking about centralized exchange listings for their particular tokens, and or other HTS listings, right? Opening up that door for other projects. So it gets me really excited, and it gets me excited too because it feels like it's happening so fast. right? This is next week. This is actually the day before my birthday. So just in time for my birthday, I'm going to wake up with my Pack token in my wallet on my birthday. And some other notable dates, right? The voting will commence today, right? So the 15th of May, that's right now. So if you are in the SaucerSwap Discord, go and vote to have Pack token listed in SaucerSwap. The snapshots will be taken on the 17th and all that kind of good stuff. So just please remember to associate the token ID for your Pack token, or I don't know what you're going to do. Shout out too. We got over 300 people watching the show right now. So very excited about that. Also too, this was a great update. We're just flying through a couple updates here. This was a really great update to see. So Crypto.com puts out an announcement. HBAR contracts are now available for up-down options through the Crypto.com app. So we saw this with Coinbase with perpetual futures. Now we've got Crypto.com, even with a cool little Hedera graphic. You know, that's no joke, putting together marketing materials like that on their end. So obviously they feel as though HBAR is a product that's going to be attractive to their customer base. And, you know, it really gets you thinking. It's these types of things where we are seeing Coinbase, Crypto.com, you know, offering HBAR related products to their customers. And we're seeing Pack token going to be listed in centralized exchanges. SaucerSwap is making efforts, all these types of things, right? You're starting to see a bit of a picture here. It's very interesting to see that. So, you know, very excited. It's a very exciting time. It's kind of like King Solomon said, and like we were talking about just earlier, it's like, you know, when you really think about it, this is just more happening faster. That's kind of just the trend right now. It's more headlines, more good news, more bad news, more of everything happening faster. And I think it does feel overwhelming, but you kind of just have to get used to the fact you're not going to catch everything. I'm not going to, you know, I often say on this show, we've been able to cover every major story on Hedera and all those types of things. I don't know, unless I make the show 4 hours long, I don't know if we're going to be able to you know, say that anymore, just because there is genuinely so much happening in Hedera. It is crazy. Speaking of crazy, how cool is this? On May 30th, Hashpack CEO May is going to be fighting in Karate Combat's Influencer Fight Club. This is so cool because when we talk about retail, right? When we talk about adoption, when we talk about narrative, it's these types of things. And I mean, no pressure, May, but if you have this type of exposure and May wins this fight and says something, you know, that just grabs the ears of people in crypto, that can move the needle. That's the type of stuff that can move the needle. That's the type of stuff that can make waves that sometimes, you know, like enterprise, real world asset use cases sometimes can't do. And so that's very interesting to me. So it's also stuff like this, right? We look at the stuff that Grelf is doing. We look at all these different types of things. And that's the other side of stuff. This stuff is engaging. Karate Combat seeing huge growth in their platform. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing that. It's going to feel like a bit of a crossover episode, which I'm excited about. Also, just blasting through some headlines here. SaucerSwap will be integrating with Hedera name service to showcase domain names and NFT profile pictures into the SaucerSwap web app through Hashpack. Hashpack, of course, launched their kind of profile system earlier, I believe this year, if I'm correct, or last year. I can't remember. If anyone from Hashpack is watching, feel free to correct me with a comment. That's one benefit of the show now is anyone can fact check me in the comments, and I can bring them up on screen. So, but this is great. And you can kind of, you know, see your username. It's these kind of, you know, usability type things that I think really draws people, that can be overlooked many times. But I think those are some of the features, that, you know, people just really kind of dig. Also, last week I was talking at length, almost probably too long, about the situation in regards to the need for the community to leverage X community notes, correct things. There's a lot of charts that rank Hedera against other networks in regards to very often TPS, and that very often, is inaccurate or leaves Hedera out completely. And so it was kind of cool to see one that worked out. And I don't know if this was photoshopped or whatever it might be, but this is at Algersman Mehen, alexfinance.algo posts a chart, and we can clearly see transactions over the last 24 hours. Hedera, number one, 140 million. Obviously, the bar is not to scale, whatever. Who cares? We made it on the chart. I'm not going to nitpick at all. And it starts a snowball rolling. I mean, this stuff works. I mean, when the community aligns, when the community gets together and really tries to clarify things, push the narrative, make sure that accurate information is being shared, like it has an impact. And all it really takes is people seeing stuff like this in their timeline over and over again to get the message, right? That Hedera has the crown for TPS. So that's really great to see. Just a quick update on that. Very, very super happy to see that. Stader also launched or relaunched, or whatever you want to call it, their staking rewards. So I'm actually curious. What is the staking rewards? Hashscan.io. What are the staking rewards right now? Let me see here. Staking. Let's see. Will it tell me? Oh, I have to connect my wallet. I think honestly, the staking reward rate right now is under 1%. It might be under 0.5%. It's definitely not near the 2.5% max. And I think that that's a big sticking point for this network is like, obviously yield, staking amount that you get for staking is a very attractive thing for people to invest in an asset. And Hedera just doesn't have that right now. And I know this goes back to, previous meeting minute documents that we have where Lehman was pushing for a more even distribution amongst treasury consensus nodes, staking reward account 0.0.800. And the governing council went another way, a much more conservative approach with less amount going to account 0.0.800. So it's this whole thing. And it's led to HBAR just not having a high yield for staking, which definitely has an impact, both in good and bad ways, I think. But from the retail perspective, it's definitely, not super jiving. I don't think that people are necessarily like excited about it, And so to see this, staking rewards just crossed 5% on Stader. So Stader's different. It's not just staking straight up HBAR. It's it's liquid staking. So you send your HBAR to a smart contract with Stader. I believe it gets locked up now for 24 hours. And, and you basically get HBAR X, and that goes up in value in proportion to the 5% APY. So it's a liquid staking mechanism. Stader was probably one of the first DeFi applications in the ecosystem. And so I asked Stader, I was like, well, how are you getting 5% rewards for HBAR? They got some stimulus from the HBAR Foundation. The HBAR Foundation sent out a tweet about it. And I think that, there is definitely questions about that. It's like, oh, is that sustainable? How long are these rewards going to last? But to be honest with you, again, like talking about narrative, talking about optics, talking about headlines, talking about things that people care about. This is something people care about. It's a box checked. I mean, if people say, what kind of yield can you get in the HBAR or Hedera ecosystem, we can say 5%, and they can ask how, and we can say, Stader offers 5%. And a lot of people will say, oh, why didn't the HBAR Foundation just send HBAR to account, 0.0.800 or whatever? I think they've done that twice already. So I think that we kind of just continue to have to find our footing with DeFi and kind of bridge that gap right now where we're at, when it comes to a lack of liquidity, a lack of stablecoin liquidity, wherever it might be. But shout out to Stader. Good to see it. Yeah, 400 views so far. We're on our way to 500 now. So this is pretty crazy. So what we're going to do is we're also going to take a look at this. And again, I'm sensing a theme here with this episode. I'm sensing a theme that narrative is really important. And I wanted to point this out quickly because I think this is really important to keep in mind. And I think this is something we're going to be seeing a lot more of down the line is, and I learned this being in a band too. People would say, you know, when you're in a band, it's very, very often, you play the same song over and over and over again. And you just get tired of it. You want to do something new. It's played out. But the reality is that something that's old to you is new to somebody else. It's new and exciting to somebody else. And it can get tiresome sometimes to talk about in Hedera, like TPS, the governing council, ABFT all the time. And eventually people say, you know, why are we still talking about this? Why are you talking about this? There's other things we have to talk about. But you will notice that people outside of the Hedera ecosystem, maybe certain influencers, tastemakers, maybe even enterprise folks or people outside of the crypto ecosystem in general, they're going to start to pick up on these things and they're going to start to grab onto them because it's new to them. And we're seeing influencers very much like AJ Crypto. You know, he mentions this right here. Hedera uses 99.99% less energy than Bitcoin and 99.97% less energy than Ethereum per transaction. So that's, you know, those figures are a derivative of those charts that we always see from, you know, UCL and stuff like that. And I think that this is what this is what I am considering the real kind of like bullish signals for HBAR, which is, folks kind of outside of the loop starting to pick up on these narratives. And I think that to us, it's going to feel like a second wave, right? I think that many of us feel like, you know, we've moved on from TPS, we've moved on from ABFT, we've moved on from all this stuff. We need to start talking about new things. It's played out. We're onto something new. But I think in a weird way, that new thing that we're onto could be right back at the beginning, as other people kind of pick up on these narratives. And so I think that's going to be a very interesting thing to watch play out. But I'm going to keep an eye out for that. I'm keeping an eye out to see people starting to talk about those things for the first time because it's new for them, right? It's old for us, but it's new for them. Also, too, real quick, shout out to Drop. Drop has been making some updates to their wallet, and they basically just updated it to support a bunch of different things. So they're also at not just B2B payments, but they're also having C2B payments, so customer to business payments. And this is really important when you think about like maybe a coffee shop or different things like that. Linking your bank, you know, built on banking rails, actually, because they're a FedNow partner. And so this is really interesting to me that Drop, after the FedNow announcement, is continuing to build out their infrastructure and their wallet and products. I think that yet again, another one to watch is Drop. So it's great to see this update to their app, to their wallet. I think micropayments are a very kind of like unexplored territory. I just want to say real quick before we dive into some other stories, I have kind of like some bigger stories to talk about. But we've had, you know, about 500, almost like 530 people tune into this so far, which is pretty crazy. And a quick refresher for people. This is where usually I kind of like, you know, talk about supporters of the show, how to support the show, all that kind of stuff. This is a bit more of an experiment episode. I'm not focusing on that too much, but I did want to say like, it's really crazy to me. I'm realizing that the show is going from being very fragmented to, I think this next phase of the show is going to be a lot more streamlined. There's going to be more. When I was working on the show before, it was live on audio only on X Spaces or Twitter Spaces, or even before that, Clubhouse. And then I had published the audio as a podcast later, which was great. Then the show moved to video, but it was still audio only live. And it's just so interesting, like even just doing the show right now in the moment, the kind of the feeling I'm getting, even though stuff isn't working 100%. We had some audio issues at the beginning a little bit. It's very interesting. I feel it's somehow like I thought it would be much more nerve wracking and out of my comfort zone. It's not like I haven't done live video broadcasting before. I've actually used this software quite a bit, but feel pretty comfortable. Like because I've been doing the video versions for so long, it's so nice to have everyone be able to, for example, like see my computer screen live and like communicate easier with the audience. And, you know, not this episode, unfortunately, but next episode, bring more people onto the show and have conversations with them face to face and have it be really easy for people to hop on from anywhere. And also not just be broadcasting live on X, but also on YouTube. And then eventually soon I'd like to add some other platforms too. But it's really, really interesting. There's a bunch of other stuff I want to do at the show, but I wanted, it was funny. I wanted to pack more into this episode and do a bunch of other stuff, but I realized like, gee, it's pretty crazy to go from live audio to live video. It's pretty wild because it's just more information, right? It's visual and audio information that you know, you guys all watching live just get so much more value second by second. So it's enough just switching. So I decided like, just do the show as normal. Let's rock the video. And to be honest, I'm feeling great. I'm a little bit in the pocket now. I'm feeling it out. And really, you know, you have to do it for real to figure out if there's any problems. You know, you can't do too many tests. I did some tests yesterday, and shout out to people who tuned in for the tests and were kind of helping me work out some audio issues and stuff. That was really, really great. So really appreciate everyone supporting the show. Couldn't do it without you guys. Now, we mentioned DeRec a little bit, and I want to just quickly touch on kind of like the big news about DeRec. And this was something I think that, of course, a lot of people were excited about it, but I think that it's going to take us a little bit of time to actually see this start to sink in and see the kind of the full power of this, because I think it's outside of a lot of the wheelhouse of understanding for most, but I'm very excited about it. Ripple and XRPL Labs joined Hedera and Algorand as founding members of the DeRec Alliance. So if we look at some of these names, right, we've got Algorand, we've got Ripple, we've got Swirlds, we got XRPL. And for folks unfamiliar, I mean, I've talked about DeRec extensively on the show, but essentially it is a new protocol that solves the problem in crypto of oh, one sec, I'm just getting some of these like emergency alert tests. In Canada, we've got like this emergency alert system, so they like keep doing tests. But yeah, so we see this, you know, with DeRec, it's very interesting because it's a new protocol, and the big problem in crypto that we just haven't been able to get around is the fact that you have to remember your seed phrase. You have to remember your private key. If you forget it, you lose everything. And the upside to that is you have full custody of your assets, which is great. But the issue is that you just can't, you have no safety net. You have no ability to recover anything. And also too, sometimes you want someone to have custody of your assets, right? You don't necessarily want to hold your assets. And so it's not just a decentralized recovery, it's also decentralized custody. Lehman has like some, you know, Dr. Lehman Baird has some long form videos that kind of like break down everything. But when we look at how this all kind of comes together, we start to see not just big L1s, but then we also see some projects that came from the Hedera ecosystem, Acor, Bank Social, Blade, and then we see some other major projects, right, like Casper, Constellation, Hashgraph Association, HBAR Foundation, Revive Labs. So we're starting to see how the DeRec Alliance is forming. It's not just going to be people putting the protocol in place. It's going to be people utilizing the protocol. And this was the big press release. But again, we've talked about DeRec at length. This is just the big news here. And again, a lot of people are going to focus on this: Algorand, Ripple, XRPL Labs, and reminding people that this is not just for storing crypto keys or private keys or seed phrases. This could be for storing passwords. This could be for storing files. This could be for storing, you know, your mom's banana bread recipe. This could be for anything, storing these secrets and having helpers that you can go to recover those secrets. It's pretty incredible. And I think that it expands beyond Web3 and solves, you know, a lot of problems. But I think what's on everyone's mind right now is who's going to be the next member of the DeRec Alliance. Who's it going to be? A lot of people are hoping for Cardano. A lot of people are hoping for maybe Solana. Who knows? If we've already got XRPL, Algorand, and Ripple, those are very big networks. So I think that's a big one. We're going to talk about some more stuff here, but Grelf comments, let's get to 600 views. We just hit 600 views on the show just now, which is wild. I'm really surprised, really overwhelmed. I think that we can safely say that that this new format of the show is very successful and people very much enjoy it. So really, really love it. Now, let's talk about something kind of crazy that I found. And I don't know, this is kind of big. I don't know how many folks have kind of checked this out. I don't know if this is intended, to be honest, I don't know if this is intended to be shared. I don't know who made this. I don't know what the source of this information is. My opinion is that it's a community member that compiled some useful info for people. But I wanted to share it because I thought it was so cool. If you want the link for it, DM me and I'll give you the link. Again, I don't know if this is something that, you know, people want shared en masse. But I wanted to just kind of give people kind of a peek at it because I thought it was very interesting and very useful. But again, if you want the link for it, shoot me a DM. Would be more than happy to send it to you. But this has been floating around, and this is kind of pretty cool. So someone put together a massive database of Hedera use cases, and we've got, of course, Atma.io, we've got Arcax, we've got WorldPay, Visa, Hyundai, Coupon Bureau, EDF, Google, T-Mobile, ExxonMobil, Shinhan Bank, WePay. They've actually tagged it of the companies involved in a type of project, a description of that project, a source link, whether it is live or not, the type, the category, the state. This is whoever is building this, please show yourself because this is fantastic. Going down here, of course, we've got, you know, the Wise ID, WiseSat, IBM blockchain platform, ServiceNow, Wipro, Dell, all of these different types of things. And you can see whether it's live on the test net or anything like that. And this is a big database. And again, I don't know what the source of the info is, but this is something I'm going to be referring to for myself to really kind of remind myself of the full picture. And, you know, just looking on the screen here, let me see if I can just even like zoom in just a little bit, just so people can see a little better. But yeah, how crazy is this? And you'll see some familiar projects and some that like I didn't even realize. Some that are live that I didn't even realize were live, which is really, really cool. Yeah. Anyways, this was very interesting to see. I'm just scrolling now. I'm just like taking a bit of a closer look here. Yeah, the IBM blockchain platform. That's pretty cool. Right here, right? The OneSpan use case. I forget about that all the time, and that's a major one that's being used by Fortune 500 companies. Anyways, crazy stuff. I saw that, and I was just kind of like, I had to share that with people. So if you want the link, shoot me a DM on X. I'll be happy to send you the link. And if the creator of this doesn't want it shared, also DM me and let me know, and I'll be happy to not do that. But wanted to share that with people. I thought it was pretty crazy. I want to talk now quickly on kind of the DeRec. I want to go back to kind of the DeRec thing just because there's a quick mention here that I think is just awesome. Blade Labs has announced they've added DeRec into Blade Wallet, and this is very cool because this is kind of one of the first like video walkthroughs of how DeRec kind of works. And I'll kind of explain what's happening on the screen here. So you got your wallet, right? And I imagine this is going to be built into all sorts of other wallets in the Hedera ecosystem and elsewhere, right? In Algorand and Ripple and XRPL and of course, because they're DeRec Alliance members. But right, you get your wallet, you start doing your setup, and this is the thing here. Your helper also opens up a wallet, and they scan your QR code, right? They're added as a helper in your wallet, and then you do that 3 times, and you get your helpers, or however many times you want. And your helpers could be your family and friends. Your helpers could be your bank, your credit union, whatever it might be, whatever the parameters of the application require. And I think this is just fantastic because this is what's needed, and it's live in the wild now in some regard, whether it's actually in a wallet or whether it's just a demo video. This is very, very cool. Shout out to Blade. Love to see new adoption for new tech. Let me see if there's anything. We got some other stories to chat about. I'll bring this up real quick. This is very interesting. This is one of those stories that I want to bring up because I think it can very easily be brushed off as nothing important. This right here is some kind of like weird boomer website, right? We got some kind of like, certification, and you kind of go, okay, so we've got, Hedera's Hashgraph certified developer, and we've got all these things, and you're like, oh, okay, so this is another one of those like LinkedIn profile things where I'm an Amazon Cloud certified, Google Cloud certified, Microsoft Azure certified, Google certified, like all those certifications that, for some people you like roll your eyes and it's like, oh, Hedera Hashgraph certified. It's, I think for some it can come off as kind of lame. This is just some kind of developer course, like whatever. A lot of people aren't going to care about it. If you care about Hedera getting enterprise adoption, do not brush stuff off like this, because the examples that I brought up of, Amazon Web Services certified, Google certified, Microsoft certified, Salesforce certified, all those types of things. How do you think those platforms got so big? Right? How do you think that those services and companies got so prominent in the enterprise space? And it's because enterprise is about reducing risk. Everything that they're doing is trying to reduce risk. And one of the easiest things to reduce risk is to ensure that the vendors you're working with, the contractors you're working with, are certified in the technologies you're developing with. And it becomes a filter for corporations. And they need that filter. They need to know, are we working with, a Hedera Hashgraph certified developer? Are we working with Amazon Web Services? And it's not to say that those certifications indicate your abilities at all. It just puts you into that corporate enterprise filter. And so, judging by the data I've seen, there's close to this is a very recent thing, but I think there's close to like 200 some odd people that are starting to get these official certifications. And this is big. This is a very important prong in kind of the attack that Hedera is making into the enterprise space. These types of courses and these types of certificate programs are not easy to put together, especially when you have a network and a technology stack that's constantly changing. So this tells me a couple things. It tells me that the Hedera technology stack has matured enough to a point where enterprise developers can get certified in it. That's pretty positive news in my opinion, just from what I see. And this also shows that Hedera is at a stage now where they're ready to scale an enterprise, right? If you look back at Amazon, it's not like Amazon would launch a certification program for AWS before AWS was ready for massive enterprise scale applications. So this kind of shows me that Hedera is reaching a bit of an inflection point when it comes to enterprise and developers and kind of that cross section. I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind. And so I get excited about that. And to be honest, like maybe I'll take the course myself, just because it might be an interesting thing to do. And it's a little, to be honest, it is a little counterintuitive to Web3. Like this isn't something that we see a lot of Web3 networks doing from the enterprise side, but it definitely, when you think about it, it does put Hedera Hashgraph in a different context. right? Like if you think about a developer in the enterprise ecosystem, and they have in their LinkedIn profile or their resume or their proposal or whatever it might be, you know, AWS certified, GCP certified, Hedera Hashgraph certified. It puts Hedera another cut above. And that's very interesting to me. I think it's going to be overlooked by many, but it just caught my attention that how kind of recent that is. And I think it's pretty great. So shout out to whoever is putting together that certification program and kind of, you know, really kind of knows what they're doing. I think that's very interesting. Someone else who knows what they're doing, but might not know about Hedera, Mark Cuban, put a very interesting tweet out that was, of course, around all the different crazy stuff that Gary Gensler and the SEC are doing in the crypto space. You know, we know a lot of people aren't huge fans of Gary. If you're not a huge fan of Gary, let me know in the comments in the show. But maybe we'll do what we'll do real quick is if you guys want, everyone watching, leave a comment. If anyone knows the meme of like, so-and-so's the kind of guy to blank, blank, blank. You know, Gary's the kind of guy to blank, blank. If you know that meme, throw a comment in. But Mark Cuban posted an interesting tweet, right? He's talking about how difficult it is for the crypto industry to operate in America right now, essentially with the SEC, you know, essentially putting the cake dish over everything. And he mentions that it's so important for networks to interface directly with, who is this? Someone commented, thanks, Gary. Big fan. Okay. We got a Gary Gensler fan. I dig it. But yeah, talking about how important it is to interface with the SEC and, you know, all those different types of things. And Perfectability, you know, well-known Hedera community member, pointed out pretty well that right out the gate, Manson Lehman filed with the SEC for Hedera's initial token drop, we'll call it. And they did it differently than other networks, right? They didn't do an ICO, right? They didn't do an initial coin offering. They did a SAFT, a simple agreement for future tokens, registered with the SEC. So that's also like there's so many little nooks and crannies to Hedera that make it so unique. That's another aspect. And so it's very interesting to start to see, again, people like Mark Cuban talking about these types of things that we've been talking about in the Hedera community for a long time. And now the Hedera community and Hedera being able to kind of speak to those things much more directly in that kind of line of conversation with, you know, someone like Mark Cuban. So I think that's pretty crazy, but go check out that tweet. He left a big, long post that has some great information, like some really good information about the topic. But just on that point, it's kind of cool to see the Hedera community, you know, jump onto that and kind of share that information. So I think that's great. We talked about that. There's only, okay. So now we're going to dive into our last two stories. These are rumors. These are breadcrumbs. These are unconfirmed things, but they get me excited. And let's talk about them. So the first one, and there isn't a whole lot to chew on with these, but it just kind of really kind of gets you thinking. So the first one that I keep seeing is around Citi. So obviously, as we know, Citi is a major financial institution. Citi and JP Morgan, let me zoom in here a little bit. Citi, JP Morgan, and a bunch of other major institutions are teaming up and working together to build a Web3 ecosystem. And it's mentioned that they're using a DLT that will not be mentioned. And that's the big question here. And kind of the whole crypto industry looks at these bigwigs, right? And they see the mention of they're using a DLT, not a blockchain. They're using a DLT for this. And it really gets you thinking, because these financial institutions, and this is another trend that I'm seeing, right? when we see these mentioned, and this is a weird thing to think about, when we see these things mentioned about, like, let's say, you know, BlackRock or Citi or JP Morgan or whatever it may be, whatever your flavor is this week, and we hear about them building on crypto or building on, you know, a DLT or whatever, and we kind of think, oh, what could they be building on? At this point in time, there's a high likelihood that these folks have already built proof of concepts on Ethereum. They've already built stuff on Solana. They're working their way through the different flavors. And it's not to say that Hedera is the DLT mentioned here, but it does feel like in the experiments happening at these major institutions, they're working their way through these networks because they try it, it doesn't work. They try it, it doesn't work. And it's clear that they look at networks not just because they have great technology, but because of the TVL or the metrics on Twitter or the whatever. There's so many other things that Hedera kind of falls short on sometimes. But it's very interesting to see this. And you can easily say, well, you know, I don't know exactly what would, you know, lead it to be Hedera as the choice DLT for this project. But CoinMan made an interesting tweet. CoinMan, the H-Barbarian, OG in the space. And you remember that I believe this was in New York, or no, this was somewhere else. I can't remember. This was somewhere. It might have been New York. I think it was. But who's on this panel? Aberdeen, right? Duncan Moore at Aberdeen. Rob Allen at Australians Payments Plus, right? On the governing council. And a representative from Citi, right? The head of partnerships. So that's very interesting. And it really kind of gets you thinking, because that's part of this kind of rumor is like, you know, Citi is starting to have these kind of backroom conversations. They're starting to make some moves within this rest of this group. And I know that people in the Hedera community have been speculating of like, ooh, what if Citi joins the governing council, or what if they have a use case, or all these types of things. And I think, again, to King Solomon's point is, you know, there's so many of these things. Like, it's not just this instance of, you know, major financial institution, you know, working on or with Hedera. It's multiple instances of this. We had the BlackRock, we have Arcax, we've got now Citi, we've got Shinahan Bank, we got Standard Bank, we got all these different types of things. And you really reflect on it and you're like, you could say close to a dozen major global financial institutions, whether they be, you know, brokers or banks or whatever it is, that are currently building proof of concepts or currently building live use cases on Hedera. Like, that's literally just a fact. Also, you know, billions and billions of dollars of real world assets, whether they be money market funds, diamonds, real estate, are currently tokenized on Hedera. So there's this push and pull with the narrative, the facts, and the volume of information. Again, like King Solomon said earlier on the show, is, you know, just one of these random headlines from one of these days, you know, years ago would have rocked the boat for any ecosystem. And now it's just kind of another drop in the bucket. And it kind of gets me excited because I read these headlines and I read these rumors and I'm like, oh my God, this is blowing my mind. And I look around me and, you know, folks are kind of, you know, not as tuned in or desensitized or whatever it might be. But I kind of go, oh, this is the new normal. Like, this is what mass adoption looks like. This is what growth looks like. You know, what was amazing is now not so amazing. We're looking onward to the bigger stuff. And it kind of goes in with that theme of like thinking bigger, dreaming bigger. That's really where we're at right now. It's so easy to think small coming out of this bear market. Kind of, we talked last week about, you know, burnout and mental health and stuff like that. And I think that trying to exit that survival state into a thriving state, you know, I think that you really open up your eyes and you kind of go, oh, wow, you know, I'm not so stressed. I'm not so stressed about coupons, you know, not going live on Hedera. You know, I think that, you know, or you think like, hey, I'm not super duper worried now about the subsidized Atma IO transactions, or I'm not like red alert about the lack of liquidity. It, really kind of seeing things in the aggregate takes a little pressure off. And so seeing that bigger picture, thinking a little bigger, I think really puts you on par with what's happening inside of Swirls and Hedera, because I don't know about you guys, but I definitely from different tweets that I see from folks that work at Hedera and Swirls, and even from those places themselves, there's this sense of confidence. There's this sense of excitement. There's this sense of just wait and see. And I mean, we've heard it before. But again, like Charles was saying, in regards to his sentiment from the, New York City Governing Council meeting, there's a bit of a change. There's a bit of a refresh. There's a bit of an update. So that's something that I think is worth making note of. Something else, and our last story of the day, is about MasterCard, one that we've talked about quite a bit. And at first glance, we've got this MasterCard article on the MasterCard website published yesterday, going into, all the different things that they're doing. This is a network that MasterCard is building, as we know. Like, just a bit of background, MasterCard had a blockchain called Provenance. They shut it down. One of their major customers, who's been a guest on the show before, Fresh Supply Co., who people are also excited about, that was a major customer of the MasterCard Provenance network. So Fresh Supply went, what do? We don't have a network anymore. So they moved to Hedera, but Fresh Supply brought as well along all of the MasterCard integrations. So Fresh Supply is really kind of the tip of the spear when it comes to integrating something like the MasterCard network into a network like Hedera for faster cross-border payments, different triggers, automations, tokenized wonders. And so this article talks about these different types of things. It mentions, a few different projects, and you kind of go, oh, okay. So there's Fresh Supply building on this new thing MasterCard's doing. Fresh Supply is building on Hedera. Okay, very interesting. So it kind of gets you thinking. And I was going, well, where do I go from here? Like, from rumor to actually like something. And this is where it gets really interesting, because just after the article gets published, a legend in the community, Kimchi, publishes kind of a take and a bit of a breakdown on this news. And who retweets it? Fresh Supply Company. And in response to the article we just looked at, as our heads swirling about MasterCard and Hedera, Fresh Supply Company says, we will have more to share very soon. And they tag Hedera, HBAR Foundation, and Sabrina, who is the ecosystem and fintech lead in the APAC region at the HBAR Foundation. So that's very interesting. Furthermore, the CEO of Fresh Supply Company replies to Justin Atwell's retweet of this. And Justin is the head of ESG at Hedera, which is, again, carbon offset side of things. So you start to go, okay, so there's some kind of ESG carbon offset credit angle to this maybe. And so that was very exciting. So he retweets this, and that's great. The CEO of Fresh Supply Co. tweets out, tip of the iceberg. And so then I reflect back on this news, and I kind of go, okay, the breadcrumbs here are not spread so thin, I guess. There's some more substance here. And so this is a story that I think I'm going to watch even closer, the kind of Hedera MasterCard narrative. It does seem like some very interesting stuff is playing out. And there was a post deleted by the HBAR Foundation. So this is also very interesting. Maybe it was just updated. Hold on. Let me see here. Because the HBAR Foundation, there we go. Okay. Maybe I just had the wrong link here. But as you can see, what the HBAR Foundation does is they point out in that article that there are 3 Hedera projects mentioned in this MasterCard multi-token network beta app developers. So that's very interesting. So we have 3 Hedera projects as part of this MasterCard multi-network program, beta program. And so you start to go, okay, the dots are connecting even further. And that's very interesting to me. So this is one to watch. And CoinMan actually points out a very interesting other element to this, which is, will MasterCard's multi-token network leverage Hedera? Right? We talk about that, but also they talk about a tokenized form of carbon credits with tokenized deposits. So perhaps this is also incorporating the Hedera Guardian. And as we know, the Hedera Guardian is the kind of tech stack for carbon offset credits on Hedera. So gets you thinking about everything we've talked about, the MasterCard Hedera story, FSCO, all those different types of things. It gets you thinking, and you keep going down the rabbit hole. And I think that we're just going to kind of have to see how that plays out. But that was a very interesting occurrence that unfolded. And we're just getting close to the end of the show here. Grelf, I know you're watching. I know you'd love to come on, but just a quick note before we end. Next week, I'm aiming to make the call-ins easier. The problem is that it's very cumbersome right now for me to have someone call in because I've got an audio issue right now where there's feedback. So it's actually pretty easy to fix. I've just got to fix it. And the next episode, we'll have a bit more of a free-for-all. We'll have some more folks calling into the show, which will be great. So Grelf, appreciate you. Next week, we'll have folks onto the show. And yeah, that kind of brings me to this, like, reflecting on it just kind of as we wrap up the show today. It was a little bit of a shorter one, so I appreciate everyone tuning in. Like I said, these next couple weeks are going to be a little interesting. I think they're going to be very exciting. The show is going to be changing a lot. We're going to start to see how people like the new format. And we're also going to see, what kind of stuff I can do with the show in a video format. Everything about the show right now is constructed when it comes to like the different workflows that I have, the production, the research, everything is based around a live audio show. And so what I'm doing is I'm just diving into the video version with very little of a plan to see what kind of new workflow that creates. And so I think that the show is going to get a lot better. Not that it wasn't really great, but I think that it's just going to get even better. This has been so fun. And if just in the last little few minutes here, if anyone wants to throw some comments up on the screen, just leave them on X or YouTube. We'd be happy to take some shout outs. And like I said, next episode, we'll have some more people calling in. And then what's a key takeaway today? Again, huge shout out to King Solomon for being on the show. That was so great for him to stop by. We just hit 800 views of this episode, and that's pretty crazy. It tells me I wasn't expecting this episode of the show to be so popular. So again, really appreciate people tuning in. This is fantastic. I'm going to be reviewing the show after to see kind of how it turned out, if there were any glitches for anyone viewing, but I haven't seen any comments about any issues. So I think we're going pretty smooth, which is pretty great. And what else? Yeah, this episode, I think what this episode was about for me is it's about understanding again, that we're just going to have more of stuff and it's just going to happen faster and it's going to be weird. And we're going to have to get used to not being able to catch everything. I think that in the Hedera ecosystem in particular, something I've become accustomed to as a voice in the ecosystem is really, being able to stay on top of everything. Cause for a long time, there wasn't like a ton of stuff happening. And that was cool because you really could be all encompassing. You really could never miss out on anything. It was easy to not miss out. And so, today, really that conversation with King Solomon and reflecting on this is you're going to have, I'm going to have to, with this show, get used to like not being able to cover everything. And I'm going to have to get used to just not being able to participate in everything. And that's actually good. What that means is that it's too much for one person. That means that the space is growing. And that's why I wanted to migrate the show to this new format, is because I do think it's going to take more people than me to do this show. I think that it's going to be really important for me to have more folks on, have those people, for example, be able to share their computer screens too, share their research, speak to their news that they're seeing, and have people be able to join the show and not have to be on X, right? Just be able to hop on with a link from their phone. And I think that people more accustomed to video calls and stuff like that, it'll be easier to get on folks like, for example, from the governing council, or different things like that. I think it'll help me get better guests. And it's easier to cover the news because now I don't have to narrate everything. I can show, which is very, very cool. It's just, there's an increased bandwidth of information right now at the show, and it can't go without being said. Again, a huge shout out to supporters. Could not do this without you guys. Like I said, people donate HBAR to a wallet. I sell it and I buy some stuff. One thing I'm going to be getting for the show is a stream deck with some buttons. One thing that's really cumbersome with video broadcasting is you have to, like, even just doing the recorded video versions, you have to be switching camera angles. I don't want it to just be a webcam staring at me. A lot of people do broadcasts like that. I like to be able to, have a little bit of a dynamic quality to it, all these different types of things. So that's another thing is, making it efficient, making it good. And to get that quality. And I can't do that without listeners of the show, right? I'm not buying that equipment to make the show better. You guys are. That's what makes this show grow. Like, I didn't get this microphone and this equipment. You guys did. Like, you guys purchased this for the show. That is utility. And I didn't have to build anything for it. I just tell people what the wallet is and they send HBAR to it. I didn't have to build anything. And I like this show to just be super lightweight, super fun, and really easy and focused on the info, right? That's all it can be. And I think that it's just going to get better and better. So with that, we're going to wind things up. And a quick reminder, the show is live every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, video on X and YouTube, more platforms to come, more things to come. The show's going to be changing a lot. It's going to be getting better and better. Also, unfortunately, I got to show before I go, this is, let's consider this, the end of the show now. So if I kind of want to take a minute, just really quick, to kind of nerd out with people who are tuned in. If you're here for the news, if you're here for Hedera stuff or whatever, feel free to get on with your day. But if you're interested in some quick, like, little behind the scenes stuff, stick around. Thank you, Grolf. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly do something real quick. What I'll do is I'll start some music. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring back in my kind of like remote camera into the show. We're going to try something here. So we've got right now, we've got my remote camera, and check this out. We'll check out some stuff real quick. So check this out. So here, I can't bring my microphone all the way down there. So we got my dog Georgia down here. So check this out. she's not happy. She likes napping when I do the show. And then over here, actually, I wonder if I can I flip my camera on this? No, I can't. I'm learning on the fly here. So can I rotate into landscape? Ooh, I can. Ooh, okay, that's cool. Let's try another shot of the dog in landscape. There we go. There's Georgia. Sound a little bath. And then this is what I'm talking about right here. So got the setup here. This is where all the kind of audio and noises that you hear on the show kind of run through. Comes up to the microphone. And then we got the broadcast happening here. This is always fun, right? Doing the like matrix thing. So we got all that going on. I got all my show notes. Each of these are like individual pages with, it's crazy. Like this is for each episode. This is wild. And then we've got my other screen here. That's what you guys see. We got the other camera up there. So that's kind of like that. And then we got some other stuff happening, but that's basically what happens with the show. That's kind of how it works. and that's how we make it happen. So, you know, really appreciate everyone tuning in. We're going to wind it up here and, yeah, take care of yourselves. And I think that, you know, when we think about this week, think bigger. This is happening. It's only going to be more. It's only going to be faster. I hit the. Was I will get the hang of this. It's weird doing it in with video. So here, let's try another shot. Okay. Wow, what a crazy episode. So remember, you know, we got to think big. We got to do a bunch of cool stuff. The dog's waking up now. She knows when it's the end of the show. She knows when it's time to go out for a pee. Maybe Georgia wants a goodie or something. Georgia, you want a goodie? Your ears perked up. Anyways, really appreciate you guys. Next week, we're going to have another big show. Take care. Hello, future. Goodbye, past.
Thanks for listening to the Hashgraph Enthusiast Show, hosted by Brandon Davenport.
Listen to past episodes and support the show at itsbrandond.com/HBAR.
Yeah, and I know the audio is still a bit funky right now, the music, so I'll work on that.